Welcome, everybody. You are listening to the Everything Horror Podcast new series called Originals vs. Remakes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please let us know by suggesting titles for future episodes. And until then, hope you enjoy the ride. Back, everybody. My name is Podolsky, and with me is
Tessa Baker.
And well, here we are. We're going to start off this new series talking about It. We're going to talk about the original 1990 TV miniseries that had Tim Curry in it, and then we're going to talk about the following two chapters, as they call it. So we have the It from 2017 for the chapter 1, and then we got the finale, which was It chapter 2 that came out 2019. So without further ado, I guess let's float away. Alright, Tessa. So first off, let's talk about what originals versus remakes is for a minute. What the idea is. The idea behind original versus remake is we pick a movie, or movies, depending on how it worked. Like with this one, we figured, why not just do both new films? Because, well, the original technically had 2 chapters in one, technically. But the idea is to take a movie, if it had a remake, and basically talk about it. So, I guess that's really about it. It's just what do we like, what do we hate, what worked, what didn't work, and then to top it off, we'll just do our final thought. But because of this being the debut episode, we wanted to make sure that we do not kill time too much, but it is going to be quite long, considering we're going to be talking about 3 films. But in the future episodes, hopefully they're not going to be as long as this one will be. So right now, we're going to set a timer for 30 minutes, and we will dive into each individual movie, and then we're going to talk for 30 minutes of that, and then we'll head on to the next one. So let us begin, starting with the 1990 original with Tim Curry. Babe, so what did you think of the original 1990 TV miniseries of Stephen King's It?
Well, I'm always a fan of classics, and I also love anything that Tim Curry plays in, and the fact that he took on the role of It, Pennywise the clown in It, was one of his roles that I remember being a child. So I thought that he was pretty scary as a clown. He didn't overkill it, and overall, just Tim Curry in any role that he plays, he does well. So I have really no complaints about who they had play Pennywise in the original It.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, Tim Curry is good. I don't think anybody can really beat him when he plays in the Rocky Horror Picture Show either, so.
Oh gosh, no.
But that's just a whole new episode later down the road, I would assume. But anyway, so this was split up into 2 episodes back in 1990, apparently, which was originally released on the 18th of November of 1990, and like I just said, they separated it into 2 episodes because of the fact that it ran 3 hours and 12 minutes. So, pretty long, if you think about it. With that being said, what did you think of the original series to begin with? like, the fact that, we actually saw both versions of, the young kids and then also the adult age.
I thought it was really neat how they did that, but at the same time, I kind of wish that they broke up the miniseries a little bit better, or at least I felt that there should have been more to it, because we had rewatched it recently just to kind of get a refresher for this episode, and there was a lot that I thought there could have been more to, but there wasn't. Whereas in the remakes, which we'll be talking about afterwards, there was more to it. So it kind of satisfied my curiosity in that sense.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I think I'm going to take it one step further by saying I think they were trying to tell us too much in 2 little episodes at the time, considering it was a miniseries. So I think what they should have done was maybe have 2 episodes of just being the young kids, and then maybe 2 episodes of the adult versions, and then that way it would have at least
broken it up a little bit.
Broken it up and not caused too much information within a course of 2 episodes. Which kind of does make you go, what? We get a lot of interesting things here as well. Like, we get the shower scene where Tim Curry comes from the floor, and which that whole sequence itself is just wow. Like, I mean, the CGI or that they had to use, which I'm assuming started as a CGI and then had to be like a practical effects sort of deal, but it just really, like, interesting of what went on, especially with the shower rods as they came out of the wall towards, oh man, who was that had to be in the shower?
I think it was Eddie.
Oh yes, it was Eddie, because he didn't like to shower with everybody else. And then, so, of course, he did that, but it's just, I think that whole scene alone is just ridiculous. But at the same time, look at everybody else. There's a lot of things, actually, that I think we'll get into with the remake that changed and as well as actually made things maybe a little bit better. But what else is there that you had a problem with, Tessa, to refresh, like, everybody else's memory? Like, was there anything else besides the fact that, they tried to cram too much in? Tim Curry did a great job, of course. Was there anything else that you wish they did better?
I kind of wish that they did, did something with, a final showdown with Pennywise. And, I don't know why, but I thought as a kid there was more to it. And now that I've seen, the remake, seen the miniseries over again, it's like, well, I guess it was probably part of my imagination that was fabricating it when I was a kid, thinking that there was more to it and there wasn't.
Well, there probably was going to be more to it, but maybe they didn't get to it. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know the whole reason, especially why they even made it into a miniseries to begin with, but
I do like the fact that they did the use of the practical effects that they did use, and the CGI wasn't too bad in the miniseries either. It wasn't overkilled or anything like that, and it was well placed.
What did you think of the weird language that was going on here too? We got the N-word going around and stuff like that. Do you think now with it not being the what would it be, the 21st century? I forget what it is. But do you think with that type of language now doesn't really fit back then? But then again, you gotta look at it too, that was back then. So.
I think it might be found offensive either way, whether it was back then or in the now. It would still be found offensive by somebody.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't even think they should have really added that in there, but I think...
They could have done without that, yes.
Yeah, but I think what they were trying to do was indicate the era it was in, because it was supposed to be set in the 1960s, so I don't know. Either way, though, I don't think it was really necessary to have, so, for sure. But then again, that was probably what happened back in the day.
It probably was, but...
I know what you're saying, yeah. Somebody did probably find it offensive, which I probably would have too, so... Because I don't really like that word, but what are you going to do?
Nobody really likes that word, except for white supremacists or whatever.
Yeah, well, we won't go into them, but yeah, that's really... God, I'm trying to think, like after seeing it too, like, yeah, I definitely thought it was longer after seeing it, though. And after seeing, like, the upcoming movies that we saw, too, I don't know. I honestly thought there was more as well. And for the longest time, I used to like the original, but, you know, it's just one of those things where it's just like, it's got its moments, but, I mean... Yeah, we'll get into it later on, because we still got a few more to talk about. But I honestly don't know if there's anything else that I like besides Tim Curry's performance. And from there, I think we're basically all set. I think I'm all set on the original talk. What about you?
I'm all set on the original talk as well. Pretty much the only thing that I really liked about the original was the fact that Tim Curry was playing Pennywise.
Yes. And they did a great job with some of the camera angle. There was a couple goofs that you can read. Like, if you look very closely when the camera is trying to follow the paper boat down in the sewer, apparently you can actually see the camera following the boat because of the lighting that's going on. Which I thought is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get into it. Chapter 1, which got out in, let's see, do you remember when it was, Tessa?
My note was in 2017. I'm trying to remember exactly the month that it was released.
Yeah, oh my god. This thing is a long ass list of people. Let's see, the 8th of September 2017. And this ran for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So, but once again, it's a remake. They were trying to redo it and everything else. So let's take a look at what our opinions were. So, let's first mention that this miniseries that we just talked about was set in the 1960s. However, when Chapter 1 came out, it was the summer of 1989. So, huge year difference has gone by as well. So, that means what, babe? The language got better.
The language got better. The whole, time era changed. A whole bunch of things changed along with it.
Right. Exactly. So, let's just get it out right now. So, when you first heard it was getting remade, and I think at the time they really didn't say it was going to become 2 films, I don't think. But what were your first thoughts on it getting a remake or rebooted?
I wasn't sure how to feel about it being rebooted at first, but I was curious as time went on because I was hearing about what everybody else thought of it that saw it and how everybody was making it out to be, well, it's actually really good. You should definitely check it out, and I don't think you'd be disappointed and blah blah blah. So for a while, it was more of like, I was curious to see how well it would do, if it would do better than the original miniseries, and how they were going to do it, being set in the 1980s. How they were going to portray Pennywise in that time, and the kids, and all of that.
Yeah, my first impression was, I don't know if I want to like this, because everybody knows my opinions on remakes and reboots to begin with. So, I honestly was trying to stay away from this film as much as possible, just because of the original was always close to me, because like we were just saying, it was pretty good for back at the time, but then when you actually sit down and rewatch it, it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, that was it?
Yeah, it's like, oh, I remember it being so much better than this, but now that I look back on it, it's like, wow, that's it, it felt short.
Right, and you were going to say something about, when we went into the movies about the miniseries. Was it for this one, or was it for Chapter 2? Do you remember?
Was it a positive or a negative thing?
God. You were talking about something, like, it was along the lines of it. You thought it was more, but we'll get into that when we talk about the new film. Or something like that. And I don't know whether or not you meant it as the young kids or when they were adults.
I felt that there should have been more to the miniseries, but the remakes actually gave us more.
Okay, so since we're talking about Chapter 1, so was there anything more in Chapter 1 that the miniseries did not offer that you actually enjoyed or didn't enjoy?
I honestly enjoyed the fact that I felt there was more of a story to it. The cast was really good. Like, the kids that they chose for the characters, the storyline in general for the first chapter, I overall enjoyed it. The effects weren't bad either. The CGI wasn't overkilled in the first chapter, but...
Well, there wasn't really that much either.
No, there wasn't that much CGI, and the CGI that was used, it was actually pretty well placed.
Yes, like, I will say, one of the scenes that really sticks out in the remake, or reboot, depending on how you want to look at it, is when George gets taken first. Because if you remember in the original, he had to, like, stick his arm in.
To get his boat back.
And then that's when Tim Curry, grabs hold and whatever. And then that was pretty much it, because I think he just basically pulled him in after that. It wasn't like anything too drastic like the new one showed, which was pretty intense, actually.
And Pennywise was played by Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah. And Bill, for the new Pennywise,
he actually did pretty good, I thought. For the first chapter, I felt he did pretty good.
Yeah, I will agree with you. Bill did an excellent Pennywise first time around for Chapter 1. But I was going to say, though, but when George, put his arm in and Bill, or Pennywise, grabbed hold of George's arm.
Bit it off.
That CGI there was, like, ridiculous. But then when we see George crawling away from the sewer area, that's when we see the CGI, because Pennywise's arm is getting longer to grab hold of George to pull him back in for, his final demise.
Yeah, and let's just say the use of the blood trail in, on the rainy streets from Georgie's arm being ripped off by Pennywise was actually really good. It added to the intensity of the scene, and just the sheer panic on like Georgie's face and the terror and everything as he's trying to crawl away from Pennywise. It was pretty good.
With Georgie was played by Jackson Robert Scott, which I don't think I've recognized that little kid, but he did a really good job. Very convincing and very real reaction, I thought.
Yes. So, bravo, Georgie.
Yes. On top of that, as well, of given the story and all that, time difference, which was very interesting, which I do wish I grabbed the book too, if I could really look back at the book, so we could even put in our little bit of 2 cents in the book, but I don't even remember what the Stephen King book even started as for a year. I don't remember if it was the 1960s or 1980s, but anyway, that would have been great. I have the book, it's just I gotta dig to get it, and I was kind of lazy to get it, to be honest. So we're just going to skip the book, but I mean, that book itself is goddamn huge. So, and I don't really know if I really have the patience anymore to try to sit down and read a massive book like that. So, and I mean, whatever. It is what it is.
I would like to point out, though, for the reboot version of it, the fear scenes, or should I say, like, what the kids were afraid of, like the portrayal of that. Whereas Bill, he would see Georgie, and the way that he saw Georgie was he would follow Georgie down to the basement, and Georgie would be standing in like this like flooded basement, saying, "You'll float too, you'll float too, you'll float too," and he would like slowly start to change, and then you'd see Pennywise coming up out of the water, like about eye level, just those glowing yellow eyes, and it's like, holy shit, and then you just see Georgie's body get like pulled down into the water. So stuff like that was actually really cool too.
Yeah, how it was playing on their fear and stuff like that. Yeah. Because that's the idea. Because Pennywise needs them to fear him, otherwise he becomes weak, as we know.
Powerless. Yeah. He feeds on their fear.
Yeah. So in order to become strong and overpowering, he needs to strike fear in all the kids or whoever that he's trying to take, I guess, for the lack of wording, I guess. Just take it, or feast, yeah. Yeah. Man, what can we even say about this? I just like the fact, too, that, like Tessa was saying, this was a better told story. Compared to the original, it was a lot better paced. There was not that much information at once where your head goes, what the hell is going on? The effects were spot on. Bill did great. Everybody did great. And
the atmosphere was even great.
Yeah, what did you like about the atmosphere?
Oh, God. Like, the house, even. I thought the house was just creepy. It's kind of like one of those things where you would get the creeps from just walking by it, and you would feel like you're being watched. And they did such a good job in the movie portraying that and making the kids feel that. Like, oh, there's something watching me. There's something in that house. There's something about that house that's so wrong. And, at the same time, they're even remotely curious what's inside the house. But it was just, the atmosphere was just great.
Yeah, I mean, who was the director? Let's see. Let's find out real quick. It was Andy. Do you know how to pronounce his last name?
Machete?
Yeah. Machete?
Andy Machete?
Machete, yeah. If we're pronouncing your last name wrong, I
apologize for the butchering.
Yep, for sure. But that guy knew the camera lens. Like, some of those shots that were going on, especially down in the sewer with the creepy house, it was pretty spot on. I mean, it was like wow, this is really good angle to really get that good creep factor, especially with the scene you were talking about, Tessa, with the creepy eyes coming from the
flooded basement.
And all you just see is those glowing eyes. And then we got that bully that was down in the sewer who gets taken.
Yep, who gets taken by Pennywise's victims.
Yep, that was a pretty good shot.
Yeah, that was a good shot. Another good shot was when they were upstairs in the house and two of the boys got separated. Well, all three of the boys got separated. One got separated into the kitchen. I think that was Eddie. And then Richie and Bill got separated upstairs. Richie got stuck in the room with the clowns. Mm-hmm. You remember that room? The room with the clown puppets and clown dolls and everything? That was a good room.
Yeah. Yeah, that was real good.
How they made, like, the clown puppets and dolls, like, follow Eddie while he was in the room. And this kid's supposed to be terrified of clowns. And, like, there was, like, this coffin in the middle of the room that said found with Richie's missing person flyer on it.
Yeah.
Of course, Richie was compelled to look, just to see what he would see in there. And of course,
Well, right, because he thought he was actually lost. It would get into him. He was like, wait, am I dead? Am I dead?
Am I missing? This is me. Like, these are my clothes. This is my face,
Yeah, even though
this
it was really just Pennywise messing with his head. Even though everybody was trying to say that to him, but he really was taking it as, oh my God,
I'm really missing.
I'm really missing.
Am I even
dead.
Here?
Yeah, am I even here? Yeah. So I think that whole entire play right there, I'm going to call it a play, because that entire scene, I should say, of like from that point when they get into the house, just to get Pennywise and Pennywise trying to trick them throughout the entire house to separate them, to get them alone, especially with like I think it was Eddie, right?
Eddie in the kitchen.
Yeah, Eddie in the kitchen. Like that one too. Like if if Pennywise wasn't too distracted, he could have taken out Eddie right then and there. Really.
Yeah, he definitely could have had Eddie at that point.
Oh yeah, he really
for sure.
could have. For sure, yeah. Besides,
if it wasn't for Bill and Eddie not being afraid.
Yes.
Facing the fact that this isn't real.
Right.
None of this is real. And when that clicked and they realized that it wasn't real and they kept saying this isn't real, Pennywise is like, oh shit. They're not afraid. So that's what interrupted him from taking Eddie out, is the fact that he picked up on the fact that Bill and Eddie weren't afraid anymore.
Yeah. And before we get into everybody else, let's talk about Bev for a minute, Beverly. So we know her situation is not really great with her father, so... And to be honest, they didn't show much within the original miniseries at all with the situation. They kind of showed it, but not really.
They didn't really get into it or really elaborate on it. They didn't really explain it.
And I almost think it's because of the TV, because I don't know if they could really have shown that on TV format compared to something like a movie-based form.
Yes.
So I think that's why we got to see a more darker...
reality
of Beverly's
life, yes.
Which man, that guy, her father deserved death by, like...
1,000-fold.
1,000, yeah.
And
Exactly.
while we're on the topic of Beverly is actually my favorite character. She was one of my favorite characters because she played a strong female protagonist role. Being surrounded by boys, the energy that she projected, despite her circumstances at home, she was fearless. And I love that about her.
Especially how, the boys were trying to, jump into their...
jump off the cliff, debating about jumping off the cliff, and she just comes running along and just dives right off.
Just
shows them up.
Yep, pretty much shows them up, like, yeah, take that.
It's like, did we just get showed up by a girl?
Yes. Yep, you did. That's right. Yeah, that was a really nice part to that as well. Oh, man. And, without giving too much away, but everybody should know what really comes up. They pretty much defeat it for the first time, even though it was very close to not being defeated, because it was What's-His-Face that was trying to sacrifice himself, but the kids all were like, no, we started this together and we're going to finish it together. And I think it was, wasn't it Stan or Bill?
Stanley.
Yeah, it was Stan. Yeah, that's what I thought. He wanted to sacrifice himself because of Georgie, because it was all his fault.
Actually, no, it was Bill. Bill was Georgie's brother.
Bill, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Bill was Georgie. Yeah, I'm getting...
Stanley was the scaredy cat.
Yeah.
That didn't really want to do any of it.
Right. And Eddie was mainly the one that, he got in trouble for even doing anything that involved getting dirty.
Yeah.
So...
Major germaphobe.
So Bill was actually trying to sacrifice himself, but with the kids, which comes back to Bev, I think if it wasn't for Beverly showing her strong role, I don't think the boys really would have stood their ground at the finale to not let Bill get taken.
Yeah, and it was really good to just see them all just come together and, and defeat Pennywise for the first time, kind of push him back and wound him. It was really good to see that banding together, that teamwork, when, with the way that they were portraying it, it was showing like they were gonna leave him down there at first and let Pennywise have him. But then they're like, you know what? After this and this and this and this, Bill, now I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown.
Pretty much.
So... It was great. I don't really have any complaints about the reboot of It Chapter 1. I really don't have any complaints about it.
The only complaint I have is that there is a few scenes where it's just too dark. And that's about it.
Yeah, the lighting, yes, I do agree with you on that. The lighting could have been worked on certain scenes. It was too dark. So yeah, I have to agree.
But that was it, really. That's the only thing I really had a problem with. Everything else, I was actually very impressed with. So, hats off to the remake. That actually did very well. And with that being said, I can't think of anything else for It Chapter 1. Okay, except for, that it definitely...
deserves to be checked out if you haven't seen it.
Out. So, there's that, ladies and gentlemen. And on top of that, right. I'm trying to remember if there was a difference at all with the remake and the original. But I want to say also there was a little slight difference. It was when Ben met Bev for the first time. Because I don't think in the original it was Ben listening to anything. and Bev was complimenting it versus like the remake. Because you remember, Bev was like, "Oh, what are you listening to?" And
Ben was listening to New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, the New Kids on the Block. And then, another thing, oh, that's a different too, is with Ben, actually. So when Ben was getting bullied, Ben... Okay, I gotta make sure I don't get both of them confused right now, but the original actually we got to see the boys carve, I think, was it?
The reboot, we got to see the bullies actually carve into Ben.
Okay. And then it was actually the original that we only just got to see, like...
Ben kicking the bully in the face and falling backwards down the hill.
Yeah, so
he never got a chance to put knife to flesh.
Okay, that's right. So once again, I'm wondering if that was a TV matter at the time. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, that was really the only other difference that I can think of. Besides, the
way that they defeated Pennywise or pushed him back was different between the miniseries and the
explain that to
reboots.
Me. I know with this new one, they were basically beating him down.
They had Beverly in the front with the slingshot in the miniseries. She was like the gun. She was like the offense.
Yeah. And then was she also using the whatever piece that somebody had, the silver thing, because they figured the silver heirloom or whatever was going to do the job. You know what I'm talking about? It was like a silver pebble or silver something, like a hair tie or ring or something like.
In the reboot, they didn't use like anything like specific against him. Just the fact that they weren't afraid of him and they just went after him with... No.
They were going to use the animal gun.
Oh, yes. They were going to use the cattle prod gun as a weapon of offense because it was just something they were going to like shoot him in the head with it.
Yeah. But
so I guess the difference between the miniseries and the Chapter 1 reboot is the fact that they used a slingshot in that one and then they used like a cattle gun in the reboot Chapter 1. And the people that were using it were switched. Mike was supposed to use it, but
Beverly ended up out beating all the boys and pretty much became the...
She was the gun for the first one. She was the slingshot for the first one. And then Bill and Michael were using the cattle gun until it ran out of ammo.
Bill were definitely using it for sure because he was using it mainly for Georgie, because I remember him having it when Georgie or Pennywise were trying to distract Bill with George. And then of course I forget exactly, but they either like ran out or
the ammo was lost when Mike was trying to fight with Henry at the top of the well when he was separated from everybody else, and he went to grab the gun and the ammo pouch, and the ammo pouch went down the well. So there was only one shot in the actual gun.
That's right.
Which Bill ended up using on Georgie, who was masquerading as... Pennywise, who was masquerading as Georgie.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And then that's when we find out that it was Pennywise, because he was coming out of the shift of being Georgie. Alright, finally, we got the final chapter. Whew. It was released on the 6th of September of 2009. released on the 6th of September of 2019. And this took place 27 years after Chapter 1. So, as the original kind of saw, with both the little kids and the adults, basically what happened was, and what I think Tessa was going to say too, possibly, this might actually be what you might be hinting at when you were talking about there should have been more with the original, or you thought there was more, and it was the fact that the original left on the cliffhanger of, everybody's getting ready, and that's when Stanley killed himself in the bathtub.
With a razor blade.
Even though what is really odd is that Stanley is the one that made everybody promise that if he was to return, they would all meet back up. Which is really interesting to me, that the kid who wanted everybody to promise that if Pennywise was to return, they would all come back together to defeat Pennywise again. But Stanley,
his fear overtook him.
Yeah.
He felt that he was the weakest link in the chain, and that if he went back with everybody else, he would get everyone killed. So he figured if he removed himself from the equation, that he could save everybody else and give everybody else more of a chance to survive.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate, because I think that they all could have survived it if they just banded together like they did.
Well, look at Eddie. I mean, we're talking about a pure chicken.
And a germaphobe.
Pretty
much afraid of almost
definitely,
anything.
though, more chicken, though, because look at the adult, oh man, I'm probably not going to remember exactly who it was, but when Pennywise was on, was it Pennywise? Yes, it was Pennywise. When he was in the spider form, and the spider form got a hold of somebody, and Eddie backed up in the corner, but he wouldn't do anything about it. And everybody was kind of looking at Eddie like, dude, what the hell?
Or it was Richie.
Yeah, maybe it was Richie.
It was Richie, and Eddie pretty much came to the rescue, and was because Pennywise was going to kill Richie, and Eddie got, Eddie mustered up the courage, and he's just kind of holding, I forget what it was.
No. I'm not talking the finale.
No.
No. I'm talking when Pennywise when he was the smaller spider in the house.
Oh.
When Eddie backed up to the corner and was literally going to let whoever Pennywise had as the adult get pretty much killed, but it was Ben that came in, I believe, to shove whoever out of the way, because Eddie was just scared
petrified,
shitless. Yeah. I just don't remember right now who it was. Maybe it was Richie. I don't remember, but everybody was looking at Eddie like, dude, you need to grow up. You need to
muster up the courage.
You could have had so-and-so just die right in front of you, and you're just standing there. But, yeah, I wasn't talking about the ending right away, where he actually gets the courage to actually do something, and then, poor Eddie gets taken out of the equation as well. So, yeah, what a shame that is, too. You finally get the courage, and then you just get taken the fuck out. Alright, so Chapter 2, let's see. So, this would have been we get to see a little bit of how the miniseries played out and came to an end, which I think that's where Tessa wanted more.
Yeah, that's where I wanted more, because I felt that in the miniseries, I felt it was cut too short, because it was like Stanley was taken out of the equation, He took himself out of the equation, and that's pretty much where they decided to end it. Like, right there. We didn't see what happened to Pennywise like we do in the remake of Chapter 2. I felt like there could have been more to it, but instead they just pretty much showed us Stanley taking himself out, and then just, that's it.
Yeah, and I think that's actually what the very finale, too, was just that we just see Stanley take himself out, and that was it. That was when the credit rolled.
And then I was just kind of like, what?
Yeah, so then we didn't really get that
Closure.
Finale we wanted, which was, well, okay, so did they
get him? Yeah.
So now we actually sort of get our answer, and, well, before we go into that, I guess we'll say category of the whole idea of what,
how they chose to end it.
Yeah, and what Pennywise is, So, my take on Chapter 2 was, it wasn't a bad story, but it was, I don't know,
It was a story that was kind of all over the place. It had way too many elements.
Okay. What type of elements, babe?
Pretty much, like, they went from, like, in It Chapter 1, they took him as, like, being, like, this, like, thing that feeds on fear and, you know, eats children and blah, 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 blah. And then you go into Chapter 2, and then it's like, oh, Pennywise, yeah, he feeds on fear and feeds on children and blah, blah, blah. And this is what he is, and this is why. And they give, like, this whole, like, freaking backstory of him being, like, this freaking, like, alien or some shit, and like how there has to be like this elaborate ritual that needs to be done to like banish him or kill him.
Walk him into this artifact,
which is looks like a jar.
But there was one thing that Mike forgot to tell everybody of how the fucking ritual worked, too. Which was everybody had to believe.
Everyone had to believe in the entirety of the ritual, otherwise the ritual wouldn't work. And if the ritual didn't work and they actually successfully tried to complete the ritual without believing, they would all die.
Yeah.
Because their lack of faith, for a lack of a better word, got them killed.
Right, which we gotta blame Mike because, well, Mike only showed
three sides of the jar. He didn't show the fourth side of the jar. He didn't show
the fourth side, but he also only showed the vision, as he called it, to
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
And somehow, by Mike showing Bill the three sides or whatever, Bill now is supposed to help
everyone else
convince everybody else that this is important.
Whereas if they really wanted to do that, they should have all seen the same thing that Bill did. Then they all would have believed, and then, you know, the ritual probably would have had like a better success rate. But because of leaving out those small little details and stuff like that, it alters the story, alters the ritual, and...
Well, if we got the foresight, it would have just ended rather quicker than what we actually got. But even then,
it would have been okay with this chapter, because with this chapter, it felt like it was almost too drawn out in a way. Like, there were things that didn't necessarily have to be there that were there. And unfortunately for It Chapter 2, I actually did have more complaints for this one than I did for It Chapter 1. So it's kind of like, I felt like it was almost too long and they could have done better with it. And the fact that Paul and I are both going to agree on this one. Way too much CGI in It Chapter 2. It was a complete CGI overkill.
Festival.
It was crazy. We couldn't get over how much CGI was in It Chapter 2 in comparison to It Chapter 1.
Which there wasn't that much in Chapter 1. It was great. That's what I enjoyed about it. It was mainly practical effects with some CGI, which, But
it was well-placed CGI. It wasn't overkill.
Exactly. And then this one, it was just more like, we're just throwing all the CGI we can with this one. It's just like, oh, God.
And Paul and I, we noticed that, right off the bat in It Chapter 2. It was the first thing that we noticed, is that the overwhelming amount of CGI that was put into this film. There was parts where there was so much CGI, it really didn't need to have that much.
No.
It was like they were trying too hard.
Well,
somebody got sloppy somewhere and didn't want to do the work.
What really killed it was the artifact. If we didn't know that it came from this outer space thing, and that the Indians feared Pennywise, even though they didn't believe in trapping him, I guess. Well, then that, that was actually, the biggest thing we were talking about too, actually, which is, so, Tessa was mentioning, Mike didn't show Bill the foresight of this artifact, right? So what we figured out is that the Native Americans, they captured it, we thought. So then, now Tessa and I are looking at each other going, well, wait, if they captured him,
then why is he out?
How did he get out? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it had to take almost 2 hours and, we'll just say 30 minutes of the film just to get that one last point out that, you see, what happened was, the tribe didn't fully believe that they could capture Pennywise, so,
they all died and he was never contained.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Not sorry, sort of thing. Another thing that I didn't really quite understand, too, is why why everybody needs to go around and find, one personal item to use to trap it.
Yeah, from back when they were kids. Something that meant a lot to them when they were kids that was tied to them when they were dealing with Pennywise. For Beverly, it was the postcard from Ben with the poem.
Yeah.
For Bill, it was Georgie's boat.
Yep.
It was different things. For Stanley, it was the shower caps that they used in the fort. It was various different things that was used throughout their journey while dealing with Pennywise.
The first time around.
The first time around that they had to use to supposedly burn in this ritual to banish him.
Right. Yeah. God. I don't know. I think that's one of the things they really didn't need for sure, because usually if you're trying to do some sort of ritual like that, especially if you need to believe in it, it's not really going to work out that way. So, but maybe that was the point. See, that's the thing. I'm starting to think about it now, and it's maybe they did that in a way of trying to say, look, we're burning this. Maybe there's hope to doing this together, but without trying to say it. If you guys don't.
if we can manage to, do this together, burn these items together, maybe that's enough to believe, that we're, because we're working together to try to get rid of them, that should be enough.
Right, but when you didn't defeat him the first time around, you're not going to have that strong belief anyway, because you might have that backfire just like in the first one. Where
that doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, because as we all know, he was in a well, in the sewer or some shit like that. And that's when Pennywise said something about, like, I'll see you in 27 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 27 years later, he's back. And he remembers every single person. Especially with, oh God, was it Richie that became that comedian?
Yes.
Like, look what happened to him when he was in the park. With the statue that came to life after him.
Yeah, the lumberjack statue.
The lumberjack, yeah. Yeah, that was some interesting shit right there. Once again, though, CGI, so, oh, God. Oh, man. You know what? I don't even know what else to really say about this, except for let's just go to the ending, besides the fact that I thought I was going to fall asleep to this goddamn thing.
I actually did notice that there was a couple of points where I did look over at Paul, and he did indeed look like he was going to pass out, which is never a good thing when Paul is watching a movie. Let's just put that out in the open right now.
Yeah, so, in my take, I would say Chapter 2 is definitely the worst out of the two that have recently came out.
Yeah, I have to say I was more of a fan of It Chapter 1 than I was of It Chapter 2. Way too much CGI.
Story was lacking and very
story was all over the place.
Boring stuff that, as Tessa was saying, didn't really need. So if we took out that weird, unneeded stuff, I think it would have been fine, but I don't know.
I did, however, not mind the actors and actresses that they did choose to portray the kids at an older age in this film either. I think that they picked the right actors and actresses to portray, like, Beverly and Bill and Richie and Mike and Ben and Eddie all at an older age.
I did like how this one did do a somewhat of a flashback. It wasn't much, because we did see the young kids again.
But it was stuff that we didn't see in It Chapter 1 that they showed us in It Chapter 2.
Exactly. So it wasn't anything that we already knew. It was something different, which made the story a little bit better. But it still was just like, huh? So, I don't know. Maybe for a film that was almost 3 hours long, like, you definitely, I think in this case, put way too much in for something that should have been maybe 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even 2 hours.
I will, however, say that for It Chapter 2, one of the creepiest scenes that I thought, or should I say one of the more unnerving scenes that I thought for this film, was the old lady.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the old lady real quick. That scene.
Yeah, go for it.
So Beverly is attempting to go back to the building that she lived in as a child, to the apartment, to recover her postcard from her secret admirer, which we all know is Ben, but she's still trying to figure it out who it is.
But she also thought it was
Bill.
Yeah.
She thought it was Bill. But anyways, so she's gone back to this building, her old apartment building, to recover the postcard because she had a secret hiding place of where she hid it. So she goes to this apartment and there's an older lady inhabiting it. So she goes inside and the old lady seems pleasant at first. Oh, dearie, would you like some tea, some cookies, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, like she didn't mind that she stopped by because she used to live there and stuff like that.
But then, after a certain point, I'm going to say when the old lady goes into the kitchen to check the cookies, everything gets really fucking weird. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, it gets really fucking weird. Like, this old lady, like, strips down to, like, her...
bottoms, I think.
No, she's naked. This old lady is naked and creeping around and slinking around like something inhuman.
Yeah.
And just very, like, unnerving. And, like, she's doing all this behind Beverly's back when Beverly's back is turned and she's, like, looking around for stuff and things like that. She does, however, recover the postcard, but just that whole scene with, like, the lady being so fucking creepy and shit is just weird. Which ends up turning out to be Pennywise messing with
the
poor
entire building, really.
Yeah, messing with Beverly by making her believe that the apartment building is still, you know, functional and the same and everything, and portraying this old lady and everything else when it's all just this big giant clusterfuck messing with her mind.
Yeah.
Which she discovers when she escapes Pennywise and gets outside that the building is indeed abandoned.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that would probably be one of my favorite scenes for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite scenes for It Chapter 2. It was one that definitely stood out the most.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, how about that ending?
I was very disappointed with the ending. It was pathetic, to say the least, how they took Pennywise out so easily. They didn't even need the ritual to do it. All they basically had to do was just take his ability to make them afraid away from him by making him to be small. Like, they envisioned him to be so small and so weak and, you know, this
that. That they could literally take his heart and, like, basically just crush it.
Yeah, just destroy it, just like that.
And we're talking about this alien that Pennywise just supposedly is, and
has gone throughout history
taking so many kids, and all these kids had to just deal with just basically bully him.
Basically bully him, make him small enough to just reach inside him and crush his heart.
Pretty much.
God, so much wrong with the ending.
I don't know. I wasn't a fan of it. Just like after re-seeing the original, I wasn't a fan of it. But then again, like I said, and like what Tessa said too, is we thought there was more to it. We never really did get a closure when it came to the original at all. So this was trying to give us a closure, whether it be right from the book, and if so, I don't know how I like the ending, but
either way, it was trying to give us an ending to the story that we never got in the miniseries, where we basically had the cliffhanger, like Paul was saying, in the miniseries, and we were left with all these unanswered questions, like what happened and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Whereas, like with Chapter 2, they gave us way too much.
So
it's either like between the miniseries and It Chapter 2, the miniseries gave us too little. By the time it reached It Chapter 2, it gave us too much. It's like there wasn't a happy medium, really, except for in It Chapter 1, where that seemed to be like the happy medium.
Right, because it actually split both chapters up and actually gave it room to breathe, versus the original, where it basically was trying to tell us so many things at one time. Which I think what they should have done is like what I was stating, I think, earlier, is maybe if they did 2 episodes that just completed Like, the chapter 1, we saw the original kids, and then maybe have 2 more episodes of the adults where they finally take out Pennywise. But other than that, I'm not really too much of a big fan either of the fact that Pennywise was just alien. I think what they should have done, in my own opinion, they should have made him more of like a supernatural, unexplainable thing versus just creature that just came out of space and somehow took this form of an evil clown. Because now it makes me wonder, like, what is Pennywise's origin then? Like, how was he able to even form himself into a clown? And, oh god, it's just way more questions than answers.
I agree.
So, I guess, to wrap things up for Chapter 2, babe, since you didn't like the ending of Chapter 2, what kind of ending would you have liked?
Like you were saying, I would have liked it probably if they made him more of a supernatural force than an alien, and actually made it more of a fight than turning it into like a matter of bullying him to make him small, to just crush him that way. I think that there should have been, like, I don't know how to exactly explain it, but more of a fight. I just felt like it was just so weak at the end. Like, it was just so, he was taken out way too easily. Whereas in Chapter 1, when they were kids, they literally beat the shit out of him and beat him into the hole, which was the well, to the point where his time was up. But I don't know. I think that there should have been a better way of defeating him than just bullying him.
So I guess to wrap this up, this is my final thoughts. After rewatching the original 1990 TV miniseries of it's not bad if you look at it through Tim Curry's vision of it, but I think Tim Curry did a pretty good job being a Pennywise. There is some memorable moments of him which were scary. However, with Bill being the new Pennywise, there is some creepy moments with him, but I don't know. I mean, I think I like Tim Curry better, but that's just me, because I think it's just because I just love Tim Curry, really. I just think he's such a great actor. And, I mean, I'm not saying Bill isn't either, but I don't know. Something about this new Pennywise is just really, I don't know. What do you think?
As in regards to the original Pennywise, played by Tim Curry, I will always love Tim Curry in anything that he plays in, even him playing his infamous role as the original Pennywise. He never disappoints in anything that he does. I will admit, though, that there were quite a few scenes and moments where Bill, who played the newer Pennywise, he was creepy and unnerving, and he also, like, when he put on the makeup, the newer makeup of Pennywise, he became that version of Pennywise. Do I think that he could ever pull off Tim Curry's Pennywise? No. But he pulled off his own version of Pennywise to the best of his ability. And, for an updated version, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like the classic Pennywise of Tim Curry.
And finally, Chapter 1 is hell of a lot better than the miniseries. As I've mentioned many times now, there's just too much going on with the original series and being able to watch it chapter 1 and let it be breathable of one particular area, for to say, because it's just nothing but the kids version without having the adult version with it. But it was nice that the film was able to breathe that way, where we could see more than what we could actually see in the miniseries itself.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. The fact that they took it chapter 1 and they mainly focused it on the kids and their childhood with Pennywise, and they kept to that story. That was really good how they did that. Like Paul was saying, it gave the story room to breathe, and it wasn't being crammed down your throat all at once. You could take it and, you could absorb it, and it wasn't overpowering. And like with the miniseries, it just crammed everything together where they should have spaced it out and, separated it, kind of like they did with It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, where it took them as kids, and then Chapter 2 went into their adult lives with Pennywise.
And finally, It Chapter 2, God, I think what killed it for me was it was way too long. There was stuff that definitely I don't think was needed in there, like Tessa was mentioning. It should have been shorter. I think really what fell apart for me was just, the moment after, like, the original series showed, which was Stanley offing himself. But we also saw the ending, too, of where somehow between Stanley getting the phone call that he from Mike that he's back to offing himself, he somehow wrote a goddamn letter to everybody stating why he offed himself.
Which everybody got at the end of It Chapter 2.
Which I'm confused, because the way it sounded like was he got the phone call, and then he told his wife he wanted to go take a bath.
Yeah, and relax, yeah.
And relax, and then that was it. So, where and when did this letter get written? Was it while he was waiting for the bathwater to fill up? That's the one thing I kind of wish, because otherwise it just felt way too, like what? He wrote a letter? I don't know. But it almost seemed like everybody understood why Stanley offed himself. Even though they tried to make that the more dramatic, emotional scene.
Mm-hmm.
But, which I will admit, it was pretty emotional, but it wasn't, full-blown emotional. But it was mainly me saying, wow, Stanley is the coward, really. He couldn't even be there for everybody, especially with the fact that he is the one that made everybody promise that if Pennywise were to come back, that they would all group back up.
Was it him or was it Bill?
I thought it was Stanley.
Either way, it was either Stanley or Bill that made everybody promise, but at the same time, he did promise that he would come back, and he ended up breaking the promise by killing himself.
Maybe it was Bill. I mean,
you're fine. But I'm just saying, either way, he broke a promise. He didn't go back. He didn't go back with everybody else like he promised to when he was a kid.
Yeah.
He took the way out that he thought would be best for everybody else, which was to remove himself from the equation. Because he thought that he was the weak link in the chain and that he would get everyone killed.
Which, really, we wouldn't know unless he was there.
Exactly.
So...
he made a preemptive decision without thinking.
through where, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was the weak link. Maybe he could have gotten everybody killed. But in this case, I don't know. He wasn't around.
All I could remember from It Chapter 1 when he was the kid is that he didn't want to go into the sewers. He just wanted to enjoy summer. He just wanted to have fun. He didn't want to go looking for missing kids. He didn't want to do that. And he ended up doing it anyways, but he would complain every step of the way in It Chapter 1.
So maybe he didn't want to complain even now then, I guess. I don't know.
I think what it chalks down to is that he was afraid to face Pennywise again. He was afraid.
Oh, yeah. That's what it definitely seemed like.
Yeah. Like, as soon as he heard that Pennywise was back, that fear overtook him, and he's like, I don't want to have to face him again. And the only way that I can do that, is to completely remove myself from the equation permanently. Otherwise, Pennywise is going to be able to get me wherever I am.
So, in that case, I guess, is for the remake versus the original, I guess, is, well, I guess it depends on your taste. I mean, I don't mind the original, but I will at least say with the two new films, it did give us a nice, breathable storyline that we could actually enjoy and get a closure of a film that we never really got back in 1990. So, I would recommend watching all of them, even the original, even if you don't like the miniseries, rewatch it again before you into the new ones.
Yeah, that way you can absorb it all.
Yeah, you can appreciate the old, the new, and the bad.
And you can judge for yourselves what you guys think after seeing.
And for me saying, I wouldn't mind recommending all three of these films is a kind of a big shocker, really. And I don't really say that much often. So I would say if you do get a chance, play them all, start from the original, and just enjoy and appreciate everything that we have, really. And who knows, maybe you'll enjoy Chapter 2 more than Tessa and I. So, I guess that's my final thought, is enjoy it. And let us know what you think down below. And Tessa, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I don't. You actually covered what I would have said. Like Paul says, check them all out. Start from the miniseries, work your way up, and just watch them. Get your own thoughts on it, and let us know what you think.
All right. Well, that wraps up the debut of original versus remake. I want to thank Tessa for participating in this debut. We've had this burning in the back of our brain for a while now to do, because we figured, well, what can we do to help bring you guys some more episodes? And, well, this idea started to boil in my head, and we wanted to try it out. And then, like I said, if you enjoyed these original versus remake ideas, please let us know. And also, wherever you are listening to our podcast, make sure you do give us a review to help us out. If you're on iTunes, you can review us there. There's a couple other, I think, platforms that you can review us on. And if you have any ideas for future episodes of original versus remake, please give us some suggestions. We have some suggestions, some more episodes, I should say, in the works. We just need to sit down and watch them. And, yeah, we'll go from there, really. And I guess until next time, people, I guess, don't float down in the sewer.
Actually, yeah, don't go reaching your arm down into the sewer for anything that you may have lost, because you do not know what's lurking in the shadows.
So thank you so much for listening. I was Paul Dosky.
And I was Tessa Baker.
And we want you to stay scary.